The Nile River, the lifeline of ancient Egypt, is immortalized for its mysterious yearly flood, a natural phenomenon that transformed barren deserts into fertile lands. This concept, the enigma of the Nile's flood, refers to the ancient Egyptians' observation and reflection on the river's predictable, yet seemingly miraculous overflow, which played a crucial role in their survival and prosperity. For centuries, the flooding was a source of both sustenance and spiritual fascination, acting as an enigmatic force that shaped Egyptian civilization. The significance of understanding the Nile's flood within this context is profound. It was the cornerstone of ancient Egypt's agricultural success and, by extension, its economy and stability. The regular inundation deposited nutrient-rich silt onto the fields, ensuring bountiful harvests. The predictability of this event allowed for the planning and organization of agricultural cycles, which were vital for feeding the population and supporting a thriving society. To illustrate, consider the example of the ancient nilometer, a sophisticated instrument developed to measure the river's water levels. The readings from a nilometer allowed priests and officials to predict the year's flood outcome, anticipating good or poor harvests, and adjusting resource distribution accordingly. In another example, the alignment of the Egyptian calendar was closely tied to the Nile flood cycle, with festivals and events centered around its anticipated arrival, underlining its pervasive influence on cultural and religious life. Many scholars and historians view these practices as evidence of an early form of scientific inquiry, suggesting that the Egyptians applied a systematic approach to understand and respond to the natural world. This perspective supports the idea that ancient societies were not merely passive recipients of nature's whims, but active participants in managing and interpreting their environment. However, the notion that this process was entirely controlled by an ancient science is not without its challenges. Some argue that the understanding of the floods was more mystical than scientific, relying as much on religious beliefs and divine interpretation as on empirical observation. Alternatively, there is the view that while Egyptians had a practical grasp of the flood cycles, they lacked the advanced scientific methodology seen in later civilizations. The exploration of the Nile's flood is integral to understanding how ancient Egyptians developed systems of agriculture, governance, and religion, influencing their societal structure. By scrutinizing the interplay between natural phenomena and human ingenuity, we gain insights into the adaptive strategies ancient cultures employed, reflecting the timeless quest to harness the environment for survival and growth. The historical significance of the Nile's flooding cannot be overstated. The annual inundation has been a cornerstone of Egyptian civilization, transforming an otherwise arid landscape into a fertile cradle of prosperity. The Nile's floods have formed the foundation of Egypt's agriculture, enabling the cultivation of crops like wheat and barley, crucial for sustaining the population and fostering economic growth. This cyclical event dictated the agricultural calendar, allowing ancient Egyptians to develop a sophisticated understanding of time and the seasons. The rhythmic rise and fall of the Nile were not merely natural phenomena, but were deeply integrated into the fabric of society, affecting religious practices, cultural narratives, and governmental organization. The significance of the Nile's flooding in relation to the main topic, controlled by an ancient science, is profound. Some historians and archaeologists suggest that the ancient Egyptians may have had early scientific methods to predict or even influence the flood's timing and intensity. This concept supports the hypothesis that they harnessed natural events to create a sustainable living environment, utilizing observation, folklore, and possibly primitive hydraulic engineering. Two illustrative examples underscore the historical importance of the Nile's floods. First, the creation of the nilometer, a sophisticated structure used to measure the river's water levels, which highlights the Egyptians' keen interest in understanding and forecasting flood patterns. Another example is the construction of irrigation canals that extended the benefits of the floodwaters beyond the immediate vicinity of the Nile, demonstrating early forms of water management that sustained agriculture even during periods of low inundation. Opinions supporting the influence of ancient science include those that point to early records and artifacts, evidencing advanced knowledge of astronomy and environmental monitoring. However, challenges arise from the scarcity of direct evidence and the difficulty in distinguishing empirical knowledge from the mythological interpretations of the time. Some scholars argue that the Egyptians' understanding was more empirical than scientific, relying heavily on observation without full comprehension of the underlying natural processes. The historical significance of the Nile's flooding interconnects with other aspects of Egyptian life, influencing religious practices like the worship of Hapi, the god of the inundation, and the development of a centralized state capable of organizing large-scale agricultural projects. As we explore the notion of ancient science controlling these floods, we uncover a narrative where observation, religious context, and innovative engineering merge, offering a glimpse into how ancient societies might have harnessed natural phenomena long before modern scientific understandings emerged. In exploring the mystery of the Nile's yearly flood, the concept of ancient predictions and observations plays a crucial role. This refers to the methods and techniques used by ancient civilizations, particularly the Egyptians, to predict and understand the annual inundation of the Nile River. These predictions were based on keen observations of natural phenomena, such as the positions of stars, the cycle of the moon, and other environmental cues that highlighted the relationship between celestial events and earthly occurrences. The ability to forecast the Nile's flooding was vital since it directly influenced agriculture, allowing for the cultivation of fertile lands, which in turn supported the Egyptian economy and civilization's prosperity. The significance of this point lies in its demonstration of how early societies harnessed observational science to manage and thrive in their environment. The Nile's inundation was not simply a natural event, it was a predictable cycle that ancient Egyptians managed effectively, showcasing their advanced understanding of natural sciences. For example, the heliacal rising of the star Sirius was used as a marker to predict the flood, showing how celestial observations were integral to their forecasting methods. Another example is the use of nilometers, devices that measured the Nile's water level to help make necessary agricultural preparations. Support for this idea can be found in historical observations that emphasize the Egyptians' sophisticated approach to managing the flood. By synchronizing their calendar with the flood's arrival, they showed a remarkable alignment of their cultural and agricultural practices with natural rhythms. However, potential challenges to this view include debates on the extent of their predictive accuracy and whether some of their success was due to trial and error over centuries rather than precise scientific methods. Controversies also arise over the interpretation of these ancient practices. Some scholars argue that attributing too much scientific accuracy to these predictions romanticizes the Egyptians' capabilities, while others believe it underscores their innovative thinking. These predictions influenced other aspects of Egyptian society, such as their religious beliefs and architectural efforts, which often paid homage to the river's life-giving properties. In conclusion, ancient predictions and observations are pivotal in understanding how ancient Egyptians interacted with the Nile's flooding. This interplay between observation, prediction, and practical application not only underpinned their agricultural success, but also shaped broader cultural narratives, demonstrating a complex interplay between natural science and human ingenuity. The role of ancient science in managing the Nile's yearly flood is a captivating subject that weaves through the tapestry of Egypt's remarkable history. Ancient Egyptians relied on a sophisticated understanding of the natural world, which allowed them not only to predict the annual inundation of the Nile, but also to harness its life-giving properties. This confluence of observation and practical application laid the groundwork for flood management strategies that sustained one of history's most enduring civilizations. Ancient science, in this context, refers to the empirical knowledge and systematic observations that the Egyptians developed over centuries. They recognized the cyclical nature of the Nile's flooding, attributed largely to the melting of snow in the Ethiopian highlands, which swelled the Blue Nile. This regularity enabled them to devise a calendar based on the heliacal rising of the star Sirius, which heralded the flood. The significance of this achievement cannot be overstated. By predicting and adapting to the flood cycles, the Egyptians were able to optimize agricultural output, mitigating the risks of famine and ensuring a stable food supply, which in turn supported the economic and social stability of their civilization. Two notable examples illustrate the practical application of this ancient science. First, the construction of Nilometers, which were stone structures used to measure the river's water levels, provided critical data allowing for the prediction of flood magnitude and timing. Second, the intricate network of dikes and canals enabled Egyptians to distribute and control the floodwaters, maximizing irrigation and minimizing damage. These innovations reflect a deep understanding of hydrology and resource management. Several scholars and historians support the view that these achievements exemplify a sophisticated grasp of environmental science. They argue that the Egyptians' ability to manipulate their environment contributed significantly to their cultural legacy. However, there are debates on the extent of conscious scientific methodology versus a reliance on religious or mythological explanations for natural phenomena. Some suggest that the religious framing of the flood's predictability might have played a role just as crucial as empirical science. Challenges and controversies also arise from the unification of religious beliefs and empirical observations. While modern perspectives might separate these domains, in ancient Egypt they were intertwined, potentially complicating our interpretation of their practices as purely scientific. Nevertheless, the Egyptians' flood management strategies profoundly influenced other aspects of their society, from agriculture to architecture, and even social organization. The ability to predict and control their most crucial natural resource exemplifies a pioneering spirit of adaptation and innovation, highlighting how ancient science played a pivotal role in the flourishing of Egyptian civilization.